So I guess as we now think about what do we do with all of this, how do we make a start, how do we change the world one baby step at a time, what would be your guidance to people, Chi?
I'll say be brave, be bold, don't feel afraid, because we need you and we need more people like you. So what I really want people to start to think about is, where can I start to educate myself? And I would say start where you find the most difficult and the most challenging. So definitely go out there, do that work. So do the learning, the unlearning and the relearning. Create safe spaces where you can have conversations with your friends, with your family, with your community. That's what's really, really important. That's what we all have to do. That's what I do all the time. And remember, you will make mistakes along the way. It's natural. I make mistakes all the time. I'm completely immersed in the topic, but I make mistakes. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and you carry on. And I really want you all to treat each mistake as a learning moment. Just think about that.
Brilliant. So I love this idea of safe spaces and being bold and going into something challenging. I guess the cynic in me or the devil's advocate here is the kind of piece that goes, oh, okay, so I want to lean into the place that I find most difficult and also not be afraid. Like, that sounds like that can't happen. If I'm going to go somewhere difficult, I am going to be afraid. And so I wonder if there's something here around, yes, lean into that thing that's more difficult. So for me in 2020, that was race. I didn't know enough. I still don't know enough about racism, but I knew nothing about racism really in 2020. So that was my starting point. I need to go do some reading, look things up on the internet, and find some people where I've already got good relationships to have some conversations. And so I suppose I'm thinking, yes, be bold by going into that area you're uncomfortable with, and be sensible. I'm not going to go walk up to a stranger and say, so tell me about your experience of racism. I'm going to go to a trusted friend and say, look, I've been looking into this. I've been reading about it. I wondered if you'd be up for telling me about your experience.
I think that's really important because even I find that a lot of my white friends, I've never had the race conversation with them. And it's only recently that I've started to have those conversations. And sometimes I ask myself why, because I guess pre-2020, it wasn't really the right time to have those conversations. And all of a sudden we're having these brave and bold conversations, and it is really uncomfortable. And I think, I always talk about the comfortable parts of diversity and the uncomfortable parts. And unfortunately, race is one of those uncomfortable parts. And it's, we just have to embrace it. We just have to have that conversation. And I totally agree with you. You're not going to walk up to a stranger and start asking those really intrusive, personal questions. And I think really start with your community, your friendship group, your family. Start with them. And I think the key thing is just listening. That is part of being an ally. Really, it's important just to listen. Okay, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to know what to say. But that listening is really, really important. And that's what we all have to learn to do. Even myself, we have to learn how to listen more.
It's so powerful to emphasize the listening point, because what also strikes me that we need to make really clear here is that everybody's experience is different. And so if I read a book on racism, if I read a book on neurodivergence, if I read a book on pride and sexuality, I'm not going to understand every person's experience. So it's great to do a bit of that reading. It's great to do a bit of the research. But the most important thing is to understand for each individual, what does that mean for you? And I'm even thinking now about, well, what kind of questions could I ask somebody? And I guess if we were to talk about being an ally or being a friend, if I were to go to my friend who I know is neurodivergent, if I was to go to a friend at school who I know has talked before about, I'm in the LGBTQ plus community, and I'm like, I don't really know what that means. Could I go to that person and say, how can I be a friend? Tell me about what that means for you. I want to be a friend. So there's something here about that listening and that openness. I'm not going to have the answers. I'm not going to know how to fix it. Every person's experience is different. Tell me about you.
And I totally agree that everyone's lived experience is different, but also what have you done? It's Pride Month, so what are you doing? What have you done, to show that support and solidarity to, your friends who are part of the LGBTQ plus community. So really do the work before you, launch into speaking to your friends. Do the work. Show them that you really want to be an active ally. Show them that you really want to create change. And I think that's a great way to start.
So I'm going to ask the stupid question. What exactly do we mean by do the work?
Do the work means educating yourself, creating safe spaces to have really important conversations, not feeling afraid to make a mistake, because you will make a mistake, delving into the more difficult parts of the conversation and diversity, speaking to your friends and your family about, for example, racism. So that's what doing the work is. And also, understanding that it's a lifelong journey, not just for one day, for 30 days. It's a lifelong journey. So understanding it's 365 days of the year. That's what doing the work means.
And we've talked about creating change, making a better world, better playgrounds, better workplaces, better society. How do you see, if we start better listening, if we start being better allies, how do you see it can make a difference to our world?
Helen, it's happening already. I'm having braver and bolder conversations. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid to let my voice be heard, I'm commanding space. And I think that really, really is important. And I think people like you, Linden Dance Company, you're amplifying these, our voices. Surely that is a good thing.
So we've got so many resources with it we can recommend, and we've put links to books and websites and things on the Linden site. So make a start. Go do some reading, go do some listening. This is where we begin.
Totally. And I often have people say to me, Chica, I don't read a book. They're podcasts, there's bite-sized information. So please, because we need you. We need more people like every single one of you.